Hello, 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 welcome back to Evan's Easy Japanese, and today we're learning about the sentence structure pattern no de, which literally translates to being that X is so, Y. Loosely translated, this means because. Here are the details, the nitty-gritty. Here we go. You're going to find this pattern inside of sentences. It's going to say, there's going to be one sentence, blah, 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 no de, blah, blah, blah. It will be inside of a sentence. Now, I've said it's going to be inside of a sentence, but it's a compound sentence. In fact, you're going to see something like X, no de, Y. X and Y are both basically sentences. Now remember, in Japanese, a sentence can be one sentence long. one word long. An entire sentence can be one word. For example, if I said, wakaranai, I don't understand what it is we're talking about. So X or Y could easily be one single word. In fact, it doesn't even need to be a verb. Psst. Negative verbs in the plain form are secretly adjectives. Whoa. Anyway, X and Y are both sentences, and together with the no de particle, or phrasing, we make a compound sentence. Next, and very importantly, no de is the te form of the extended predicate. When I finally make a video on the extended predicate, there will be a link to it down below or in the video. Woo! Eventually that'll be there. Okay, those are the basics of no de. Those are the important chunks of no de. It's found inside of a sentence, generally. It could be at the end of a sentence, but if it's found at the end of a sentence, you're understanding that you already know what Y is. You know, Y is left out. X and Y are both sentences. Remember, a single sentence can be one word. We're making a compound sentence. No de is the te form of the extended predicate, which will be explained in another video. The loose translation of no de is basically because. Because X, Y. Because X, Y. Because I ate a potato, I'm fat, etc., etc., etc. Things like that. However, the 100% literal translation is being that X is so, Y. How are those two different? Well, the important point to notice is that here we're almost saying there's a causal relation between X and Y. And here we're sort of using deductive reasoning to the effect of, remember, anybody, you might not be old enough, I don't know how old you are watching, because I'm not, that intelligent. But remember in geometry, proofs? It's almost like we're doing that. You start off with a fact, and then due to the simple reason that that fact is accurate, something has to follow. Being that it's a triangle, all of the angles add up to 180 degrees. That's sort of what we're doing. Being that something is true, something else follows from it logically. That's almost literally what you're saying. Being that X is so, Y. Okay? Now let's move into actually making the pattern. There's a few things we need to keep in mind. And here's a few rules on using this pattern. Regarding X is usually in the plain form. It's usually the plain form, so just simply, taberu, or nomu, or korosu, or shinu. Those are horrible verbs to use. Taberu, iku, nomu. I already said that one. But they can be in polite form. Polite form in case you're using some other textbook. Polite form, distal form, teinego, the mas form. The mas form is generally what we're talking about. Dictionary form. Usually it's in dictionary form, plain form. But it can be in the polite form, the mas form, the distal form, the teinego. There's so many different words for what we're talking about. Anyway, usually it's in the plain form. However, it could easily be in the distal form, the polite form. If you're using the polite form, you're being polite. In fact, you're being incredibly polite. You're going out of your way to be polite. Because almost always, even if you're trying to be polite, only the last verb in the sentence, i.e. Y, would have to be in the polite, the mas, the whatever form that we're talking about, the polite one, the teinego. Alright, X. X, it can be a noun, but we're going to need that des verb in some way, shape, or form. This is very important. If we're using a noun before X, it's a pie. Being that it's a pie, it's going to be eaten quickly. If it's a noun, we're going to need this is verb. We're going to need this des in some way, shape, or form. That's going to be important. That's the next step. It could also be an adjective. It could also be a verb. Basically, it could be any single word we want to, except for something like totemo or an adverb. So, which you'll never encounter an adverb being the end of a sentence anyway. That's just incorrect grammar. Okay? Well, 98.9999% of the time, you're not going to encounter an adverb at the end of a sentence, because it just doesn't work that way almost always. I need to be careful because there's going to be some internet dude. Okay, anyway, when we're using des and nouns and not adjectives. Next slide. Like I said earlier, if X is a noun or not adjective, use des. But not des. Use a des-related verb. Okay? For example, if it was a pie, we're not going to use des, obviously, because it was a pie. We're going to be using, once again, we usually use the plain form with this, so if it's past tense, not des, we're going to use datta. It could be deshta. Most likely it's going to be datta. If it was a pie, if it was something, we're going to be using the past tense form of it. Obviously. But wait, Evan, what if it's currently a pie? Well, if it's currently a pie, you're gonna say, well, darn it, obviously we need to use da. Of course, because da is the plain form of des. You'd be wrong. We use na. We do not use da, we do not use na, we do not use no. Did I just say we don't use na? We do not use da, we do not use no, we do not use, I almost said it again. We do use na, we do use na. Okay? If it's des, not deshta, we use na. If it is past tense, it was a pie, we use datta. If it is a pie, we're using na. Same thing with na adjectives. Okay? Now the inevitable question is going to pop up. What's the difference between a node and a kara? Node versus kara. Fight! What's the difference between kara and node? Remember, node is almost saying, being that X is so, Y follows. Whereas kara is saying more along the lines of, from X, Y sort of happens. Y does. So a literal translation of the word because, and that's even mind-blowing because what does because meaning? If you listen to the word because, it means being that X is, it causes, the be causes something. So actually, literally, because is more translated as node. However, if we think of the idea of so and ergo, also we're kind of using the node particle. Kara, on the other hand, is more literally the more casual usage of the word because. Well, because this is true, because I like cake, that's more of the kara. Honestly, there isn't a huge difference between the usage of them. One textbook I read, Adventures in Japanese, says you shouldn't use node for opinions and suggestions and commands and things like that. And then the other textbooks I read, they say, yeah, it's no problem. Honestly, never been corrected on incorrect usages of node. They generally mean because. And to be honest, I don't agree with Adventures in Japanese because I've seen examples in real life that use node for opinions and suggestions. So, well, maybe not opinions, but definitely for suggestions and recommendations. Okay, going further. Next thing that's very important when we're using node, remember, we don't use des or da if it's the plain form, if it's the plain current form / the habitual form. We're going to be using na. So, kirei na node, kirei na node, camera na node, maka na node. Whereas, with kara, we are using da. Maka dakara, camera dakara, hon dakara, things like that. Kirei dakara. We drop the na on na adjectives here. we use the na on na adjectives here. We use da with nouns here. We use na with nouns here. That's the way it goes. Hope that makes sense. There should be some practice next to this. Have yourself a holly jolly, whatever day you're watching this. It's almost Thanksgiving. This is my new watch, by the way. Okay, those are the important parts. Have a great day.